Sweet Tooth Volume 6 Wild Game, written and art by Jeff Lemire. Hello everyone. I will be returning to American Vampire after this video, so that is going to be next, for those of you wondering. But right now, we are going through the series finale of Sweet Tooth. Last volume, it ended with Lucy dying, and Gus and Jepperd and the other hybrids at the Project Evergreen Dam. Well, in this volume, they will all finally get to Alaska. We will see the mysteries that await us there, and we will get answers, and we will get to the conclusion and see where everyone ends up. And I feel this series ends in a very satisfactory way. It's a very good ending, I think, and I think you will all dig it. So let's dive into Volume 6, Wild Game. Issue 33, The Continuing Adventures of the Big Man and the Boy. Jepperd and the group buried Lucy. They mourned her passing. The kids carved a marker for Lucy that read, "Here lies Lucy. She was nice. She took care of us. She was our friend, and we will miss her." Everyone hung out by the fire. Becky cried. Jepperd and Jimmy drank some booze. Eventually, Jepperd made a deal with the real Project Evergreen people that they could have the dam in exchange for their last truck. The Project Evergreen people accepted the deal, and Jepperd and everyone had a truck to drive away in. At some point, Jepperd discovered Haggerty's frozen corpse, so he in fact did freeze to death. Jepperd, he was ready to head north with Gus and the others finally, but Bobby still had to hibernate, so he couldn't make the journey with them to Alaska. Gus asked Bobby, "Bobby, don't you want to come with us to Alaska?" And Bobby says, "Bobby am love Gus and Wendy, but Bobby am so tired. Bobby am need to rest." So Bobby would stay behind, and Johnny would stay behind with him, and they would live with the Project Evergreen people in the dam. Jepperd and the others were welcome to stay as well, but Jepperd, he wanted to push onward. They all say their goodbyes, and Jepperd, Gus, Jimmy, Wendy, and Becky in Project Evergreen's last truck all begin driving north to Alaska. And in the car ride on the way there, they're all singing and having fun. Gus could swear he even saw Jepperd smile. Dr. Singh, on the other hand, he tried to kidnap Gus last volume, and because of this, he did not dare return to the others. He knew Jepperd would kill him over it. No matter though, Dr. Singh just continued onward to Alaska by himself, and he will see what mysteries await there. Surely Gus will make his way there on his own anyway. He is destined to go to Alaska after all. Abbot was hot on everyone's trail. He eventually arrived at the dam as well, just hours after Gus and Jepperd and everyone else left. Abbot still has those hybrid dogs. They are excellent trackers. And Abbot, he didn't waste any time. He blew open the doors of the dam, and inside the dam, he found his brother Johnny, and he knew he could make his little brother talk if he had to. Issue 34, The Ballad of Johnny and Abbot. We see in the Project Evergreen Dam, the hybrid dogs are devouring all the Project Evergreen people, and Abbot is interrogating his brother Johnny and wants information on where Jepperd and Gus and all the others are headed. Johnny is not answering. He is just asking his brother Abbot, "What the hell happened to you, Doug? What the hell happened to my brother? This isn't you. I remember who you were." We now have a flashback to Doug Abbot and Johnny Abbot as kids. They didn't have the best upbringing. Their dad was a real asshole. There was this one time their pet dog shit on the lawn, and their dad was infuriated that there was shit on the lawn not cleaned up, and he grabbed little Johnny and tossed him onto the ground, onto the shit to clean it, and then he kicked the dog. Abbot, jumped in to defend his little brother and the dog from their mean dad and told his dad to leave him alone. The dad then punched Abbot and stormed inside. Abbot told his little brother then, "I won't always be there to protect you, you know." Years later, the plague has now started spreading. Abbot is in the military. He is a captain in the infantry. Johnny was left alone to care for their now sick dad back home. The dad, yelling at Johnny, tells him to go out there and get some food and supplies for the two of them. He is still berating his son, even during this plague. So Johnny, he goes out, he searches the city for some food. He is looking in an old abandoned variety store, and there he has a run-in with some scavengers. The scavengers are threatening Johnny and want him to give them all of the food that he found. Johnny says, "Come on, guys, I found this food fair and square." The scavengers start beating up on Johnny. All of a sudden, though, Johnny gets saved. One of the scavengers gets shot in the head, and we see Abbot, now a little older, is holding a gun, and he fired on the one scavenger. He tells the other scavengers to get away from him right now, and the other scavengers then run off. So Abbot has a real history of caring for his brother. Abbot explains to his brother Johnny that the army is falling apart, and his unit decided to head back south. Word is a bunch of them are meeting up near Nebraska. They're gonna set up their own safe zone, so Abbot stopped by to get his brother Johnny. Johnny starts talking about their father though, and Abbot says, "Look, I came back to get you, not him." And Johnny argues, "Jesus, Doug, he's our father. We can't just leave him behind." And Abbot argues, "He's a sadistic old bastard. He always has been." Nevertheless, Johnny says, "We can't leave him behind." And Abbot says to his brother, "I know. That's why I already killed him." And Johnny says, "What? What are you talking about, Doug?" And Abbot explains, "I went to the house to look for you first. He was there alone. I knew you'd never leave with him still there, so I killed him." Johnny, finding this hard to believe, hard to take in, he says, "No," and he starts running all the way back home. Johnny arrives back home and he sees that his brother wasn't lying. Abbot did in fact kill their dad. Johnny is crying and furious with his brother, and Abbot, shaking his little brother, says, "You have no idea what I've seen out there. Everyone is dead. They are just rotting meat, and that's all he was too, just rotten meat, except you couldn't let go. Even after everything he did to us, you were still shackled to him. I did it for you. You're free now. I came back for you, but I can't protect you forever. You gotta make a choice. If you're gonna come with me, you gotta let go. It's the only way to survive out there." So Johnny, he ended up joining his big brother. They reported to that militia base in Nebraska that was just being set up at this point in time. This base is going to try and experiment on the hybrids to find a cure. The guy in charge of the militia base at the time is looking at all the new recruits there. Abbot, he is standing in a line with other men, and he introduces himself. Now this man in charge, he is happy to have a capable soldier like Abbot and some of these other men there to protect the perimeter. But when he sees Johnny, a weakling, the man in charge says, "And what the fuck am I supposed to do with a sorry sack of shit like you?" Now Abbot, trying to defend his brother here, says, "He's with me, sir." But the guy in charge says, "I don't care who he's with. He's useless to me. You are here to protect our gates. The gates protect the hybrids. That's all I care about. The rest of you can stay, but he goes. I got enough mouths to feed as is. Don't need any freeloaders." Abbot, he is not gonna throw his brother Johnny out there into the wild. He says, "That is unacceptable, sir." And the man in charge replies, what did you say to me?" And Abbot explains, "That's my little brother, and he stays." The militia guy replies, "Look it, either you stay and he goes, or you both go, your choice. I don't know who you think you are, soldier boy, but I'm in charge here." And to this, Abbot replies, "I don't think so." And Abbot stabs that soldier in his abdomen, and he is bleeding. Abbot then replies, "Looks like I'm in charge now. Anyone else got a problem with that?" Everyone else pretty much just falls in line, and Abbot quickly takes over this militia facility. So Abbot, he was in charge and he was running things, but Johnny, he would try and protect the hybrid kids from the military and the scientists that wanted to operate on them. Johnny didn't like the work being done on the kids, and this pissed off the scientists and the military. Abbot, talking to his brother alone, told him that he can't keep doing this. The work must go on. He can't protect him forever. Johnny tells his brother, "They're all terrified of you. You don't have to worry about them." And Abbot says to this, "No, you don't get it, Johnny. You make me weak. This is the last time. I can't protect you anymore." Now back in the current day in the Project Evergreen Dam, Abbot, he is pointing a gun at his brother Johnny, and he wants information. Abbot tells his brother, "And I just kept doing it. No matter how often you messed up, I kept you safe. And how did you repay me? You betrayed me. The first time you let Jepperd go, I forgave you. But then you did it again with the hybrid kids." And Johnny says, "I'm sorry, I couldn't let you hurt those kids anymore." And Abbot to this replies, "It doesn't matter. I'm gonna wipe every last one of those little abominations off the face of the planet. You failed. Now, last chance. Tell me where they went and I'll let you stay here. Leave you alone for good." And Johnny, with tears in his eyes, says, I can't, Dougie. I'm sorry. But I know you. You won't kill me. You talk tough, but I know you won't do it." This is the last straw, though. Abbot shoots and kills his brother Johnny dead. Johnny gets shot in the head and falls dead to the floor. Abbot then says, "No more." He tells his men to take the body outside, find somewhere nice to bury him. Then Abbot turns to the hybrid dogs and says, "Come on, you've got some hunting to do." We see little Bobby crying. He is still hiding within the Project Evergreen Dam. Will he be found by Abbot and the others? Issue 35, The Singh Tapes, Volume 3, Alaska. So in this issue, we have two simultaneous stories happening. One story is Dr. Singh in the present day. He has made his way to Alaska, and he is trying to track down the home of Gus's dad, Richard Fox, as well as the lab that Richard worked in. The second story is what happened to Gus's dad. Let's focus on Gus's dad first and what happened to him in the past. So Gus's dad, Richard Fox, lived in Alaska with his wife. He worked at Fort Smith in Anchor Bay, and he was just a lowly janitor. We see him using a mop and cleaning toilets and things like that. And he would see scientists there working on things in a restricted area. But he had no idea really what they were up to. Well, life went on like that for a while, and then one day the plague hit, and his wife started getting sick. What could he do though? He just kept working, kept mopping, kept cleaning toilets. His wife stayed home. His wife started growing more distant. She was depressed. She was scared. Richard, he was at work one day. The plague was really starting to affect people by this point. The guards that usually manned the front gates, well, they were gone now. So Richard let himself in. Inside the facility, one of the scientists there was sick as well, and he crawled through a door, and he was dying. Richard, he was pretty much the only one left, so he decided to look around. He walked into a nursery that was in the facility there, and in that nursery room he found Gus, a baby hybrid Gus inside a crib. Richard also saw other documents around. There was a file saying that Gus was subject number 1, and that he was born successfully from an incubation tank. Richard, realizing that pretty much everyone else was dead or gone, decided to take Gus with him, take Gus home. Richard notices that everyone around him in the town is pretty much also dead. When Richard arrived home to his wife, she had passed away now as well. So Richard, alone with Gus, decided to drive south. He drove south and eventually wound up at the Nebraska State Wilderness Sanctuary, where he would raise Gus in the deep woods until Richard ended up dying himself from the disease several years later. Now jumping over to Dr. Singh in the present day. Dr. Singh had tracked down Richard's home there in Alaska and found the dead body of Richard's wife decomposing. Dr. Singh then tracked down the Fort Smith facility, and as Dr. Singh approached the doors, he saw footprints. They didn't look human. Dr. Singh, he found a corpse of a scientist inside, and that scientist was holding a book. Dr. Singh looked at the book, and it was the journal of Dr. James Thacker from 1911. That was the journal we saw featured in Volume 5 in that whole Alaska backstory story arc. Singh, he found the nursery room with the crib and the files and the pictures of baby Gus. Dr. Singh decided then to read the diary, and he read about James Thacker and how he ran into a similar child like Gus, and that all the death and disease that followed that boy. Dr. Singh then noticed a ladder leading downstairs. He climbed down that ladder, and it led to an ice cave. The very same ice cave we saw featured in Volume 5, the cave with all the tombs with the animals carved into them. Dr. Singh, he then saw all these incubation tanks, 7 of them. Gus's tank was the only one that was opened. The other tanks seemed to have been broken from the inside. Eventually, Dr. Singh heard some noises, and now we see the 6 other animal hybrid kids that were in the other incubation tanks are there to confront Dr. Singh. Issue 36, Wild Game, Part 1 of 4. Jepperd, Jimmy, that bird hybrid, Gus, Wendy, and Becky continued driving and eventually, finally, arrived in Alaska. Back near the Project Evergreen Dam, poor Bobby is running, and Abbot with his hybrid dogs are chasing him. Eventually, Bobby gets trapped. He climbed up a tree, but he has nowhere else to go. So Abbot managed to get Bobby down. And then Abbot began choking Bobby, and Bobby was crying, and Abbot asked him, where did Jepperd and Gus go? Bobby, he didn't want to talk, but he was scared, and he was just a little boy. So Bobby told Abbot that the others were going to Alaska. Abbot is appreciative of the info. He then tells the dogs to go ahead and eat Bobby, but then he changes his mind. Abbot thinks Bobby might be good bait to draw out the others later. Jepperd and everyone else now arrived in town there in Alaska, and they are deciding where they're gonna sleep for the night. Gus, he spots some animal footprints and follows them. Gus eventually follows those footprints down an alley and into another street, where Gus is all of a sudden faced with those 6 other animal hybrids. Gus approaches the hybrids and he thinks they're actually pretty friendly. The fox hybrid sniffs Gus's hand. They all hear some noises coming from a nearby church. Everybody, Jepperd included, rush over to see what all the commotion is. Now when the group opens the church doors, They see Dr. Singh in there. He has papers and books sprawled all over the church's floor. Jepperd begins questioning Dr. Singh, and Dr. Singh, he starts rambling about everything he's learned. How he found the animal hybrids outside in the lab under Fort Smith, and he tried to befriend them, but they were feral and chased him, so he really wants those animals kept away from him. Dr. Singh then starts explaining the discoveries he made in the underground facility in Fort Smith. He says, "The things I found, the things they were doing. They found the tomb, you see, they opened them. They never should have opened them." Becky, listening to this, says, "I think the doc's brain is broken." Dr. Singh continues, "Hush, child, listen, the plague, the hybrids. Gus's father was just beginning to glean the truth before he died. But it wasn't God that did this, that created you. It was God's. Project Moro, they called it. Project Moro. So obvious, don't you think?" Jepperd says, "You better start talking sense, old man." Dr. Singh continues, "I'm talking about actual living beings, Jepperd. Incredible creatures that once walked the earth. They were not just creatures of myth. They were real, flesh and blood like you and I. They walked the earth just like you and I do now. Then a child was born, a godling, a dear boy like you, Gus. But he brought the sickness with him. He came to punish us for disturbing their sleep. But then a man came, a James Thacker, and he did what all men do. He killed it. He buried it deep below the ice, and the dying stopped, and they went back to sleep. But James Thacker didn't stop the apocalypse. He just postponed it. And they found his journal in the ice, and these scientists, these stupid men, they found his journal. Don't you all see what we've done? Don't you understand? Once they found the tombs again, they couldn't stop themselves. They built a laboratory over it. Such sacrilege, such blasphemy. It's no wonder they wanted to punish us again. A laboratory? Science is death. I see that now. I was so wrong. They tried to clone them. They tried to harness their power. Tried to weaponize godhood. Can you imagine the arrogance of these stupid men? These incredible beings, these creatures that once walked the earth. They found them, you see, their remains, and they cloned them. Cloned you, Gus. You are the first of this new race of gods. You have come to judge mankind, and you brought the sickness with you. Dr. Singh, now crying, points at Gus and says, "It was you. The plague was born with you." Issue 37, Wild Game, Part 2 of 4. Dr. Singh tells Gus that he is the carrier of the disease, and he was sent to kill us all. Gus is scared. He says, That ain't true. I didn't hurt nobody." Dr. Singh says, "You don't believe me? Go see for yourself. It's all under their base, their tombs, the labs. You were the carrier, Gus. You were sent to kill us all." Jepperd then punches Dr. Singh in the face and says, "That's enough, bold man." After everyone calms down, Gus says he wants to see it. He wants to see this tomb where he came from. He wants to see what Dr. Singh was talking about. Jepperd relents. He says, "We've gone this far, might as well see this through." Jepperd tells Jimmy to stay behind, scavenge for supplies with Becky and Wendy, and find a warm place for them to sleep. And he'll take Gus to the lab. Now we see while they're talking, Becky is surrounded by those new animal hybrids. They seem to have taken a liking to her. Now we see up in the sky, the bird hybrid is flying around. And Abbot and his crew are down below and they spot that bird. Abbot, he must be getting close to Jepperd and Gus now. Abbot asks one of his men for a rifle, and he shoots that hybrid bird, and it falls dead to the ground. A nearby soldier says, "Jesus Christ, it's a hybrid." And Abbot corrects the man and says, "It was a hybrid. Now it's a message." Gus and Jepperd arrive at Fort Smith. They are looking around. They found the room with all the tombs in it and the test tubes and the skeleton corpses. They are not really sure what to make of it. Gus asks Jepperd if he thinks Dr. Singh was right when he said the plague came from him, and Jepperd admits to Gus, honestly, yeah, I think maybe it did. I'm sorry, I know that's not what you want to hear, but I think it probably did somehow. I mean, you hybrids and the plague all started at the same time. Everyone knows it has to be connected somehow. Look, I know you came here looking for some great secret, some big answer to everything, but I don't think it's here. And Gus replies, but what about what my daddy told me? Why did he lie to me? Jepperd answers, he didn't. I think your dad really believed everything he told you about heaven and hell and all that. The truth is, we ain't ever going to understand how it happened. What the hell they were doing here in this lab, none of it. There's no big secret, at least not one you or I or Singh or your daddy are ever going to be able to explain. But it doesn't matter. Gus asks, it don't? And Jepperd answers, no, not anymore. It's what happens next that really matters. They hear a noise nearby and they climb up a ladder to investigate the noise. And there they see Bobby. And Bobby, he has found them and he has the dead hybrid bird tied to his neck by Abbot. And Bobby tells Gus, Gus, Bobby am so tired. Bobby am need help. So Gus, Jepperd, and Bobby return to Jimmy and the others. Jimmy is sad to see his hybrid bird friend now dead. Bobby explains to the group that Johnny is now dead, and they let him go, and told him to go run and find Gus. See, Bobby, he's a good tracker, so they knew he could do it. And Bobby, he found them. Bobby says that now he smells Abbot and the others are coming this way too. So Jepperd and Jimmy now discuss Abbot's imminent arrival. Abbot's coming here for a fight, and they're gonna have to give it to him. Jepperd asks Jimmy, so you tell me, fat man, you ready for one more fight? And Jimmy answers with this amusing line, one more fight? Hell, we didn't grow these playoff beards for nothing, Jepperd. For those of you unfamiliar with hockey superstition, in the playoffs, hockey players usually don't shave their beards until the playoffs are over. So they often have these thick, unruly beards by the time it's done, much like Jepperd and Jimmy do right now. Jimmy and Jepperd know that Abbot is going to come in guns a-blazing, and they will most likely lose a fight with him. It's most likely going to be a suicide mission. But maybe the two of them can buy the kids enough time to slip away and escape. Gus, he doesn't want to hear this. Gus argues, I can fight too. But Jepperd tells Gus, look kid, I know this isn't easy, but we ain't got time to argue about it. Abbot is almost here and he's not gonna stop until we are dead. One thing we do know, one thing we can't argue about, is that sooner or later, the plague gets all of us. All of us humans, I mean. But not you. You kids are safe from it. And I gotta keep it that way. Hell, maybe that's why I lasted as long as I have. Maybe that's why I'm still here. Even though Louise and Lucy and my son are gone. Maybe I'm supposed to keep you safe this one last time. And Gus begs, but I don't want to go on without you. And Jepperd says, we may not have a choice, kid. Those other kids, they're gonna need someone to look out for them. Jepperd thinks that someone should be Gus. Jepperd, he then tells Becky to pack the truck with as many things as she can, and then take the kids to Fort Smith in the truck. And when the fighting starts, take the service road around to the highway and hightail it out of here. And do not stop and do not turn back no matter what. Jepperd, he also gives her a gun and tells her with Lucy gone, she needs to step up. Jepperd then says to the rest of the group, this is it. The kids need to get out of here alive, no matter what. Let's get moving. Issue 38, Wild Game, Part 3. Becky, Gus, Bobby, and Wendy have head over to Fort Smith to hide until the fighting starts, and then they will have to try and slip out of town. Now, while they are there at the Fort Smith facility, they are looking at all the tanks and things. Gus, looking at the tanks, says, "This is where I came from. I was born in one of these tanks, I think." Gus, he starts thinking back to what Dr. Singh told him, and he continues, "Dr. Singh said it was me, that when I was born I carried the sick and whatever it was that made all the other hybrids in me. I was the carrier. I killed everyone. I killed my daddy and yours." Becky, trying to make Gus feel better, tells him, "You didn't do anything wrong. Humans did. Whatever happened here that caused you and the sick, it was us, humans." Wendy hugs Gus to console him. Becky is talking to Jepperd through a walkie-talkie, and she wants a status update on the situation. Jepperd, he sees Abbot approaching through his binoculars. Jepperd and Jimmy, they have set up some traps and bombs and are waiting for the coming fight. As some of Abbot's trucks drive by, Jimmy blows up some of the explosives they set up, and they manage to take two of Abbot's trucks down in the explosion. Jepperd, he jumps off a short roof and he steps into action. He starts firing at some of Abbot's men, although some of Abbot's men fire back, and Jepperd is forced to retreat. Eventually, Jepperd, Jimmy, and Dr. Singh, they are in that church in that town, held up there. Dr. Singh, he's being useless, just hiding, and Jepperd and Jimmy, they lock the doors and make their way up to the steeple. It's bricked, which will protect them from gunfire, and they'll have the high ground. They're both up there shooting people down below. Dr. Singh, he's hiding down below on the ground behind some barrels. Now Jepperd, he gets on the walkie-talkie and tells Becky that they are pinned down, but they have Abbot's men distracted. It's time for Becky and the kids to go. So Becky, she gathers the kids and leads them to the truck to drive off. But as they are about to head off to leave, oh shit, one of Abbot's trucks is driving right to them, up the service road they were planning to escape by. She tells Jepperd this over the walkie-talkie. Jepperd, he hears this, and he decides he has to get to the kids to help them. Jimmy tells Jepperd to go. He'll hold the people off here, keep them busy while Jepperd slips out and gets to Dr. Singh's truck and drives off. Jepperd tells Jimmy, "They'll kill you." And Jimmy tells Jepperd, "We both knew we weren't getting out of this one alive, Tommy, and those kids need you. So let's stop arguing and do this before I lose my nerve." Jepperd tells Becky that he's coming, and Jimmy and Jepperd say their goodbyes. Jepperd runs off as Jimmy recites the Our Father prayer to himself, and then he heroically opens the church doors and yells, "All right, let's go, you sons of bitches!" And he starts blasting the lot of them, but Jimmy then gets shot in the shoulder. He manages to push onward though, and he throws an axe at one of Abbot's attackers' heads, but then Jimmy takes a barrage of bullets on, and he dies. Jepperd makes his way to where Dr. Singh's truck was parked, and Singh is there with the keys. They both get in the truck together and drive off. Jepperd radios into Becky to hold on, he's on his way. Back on the radio though, he hears Abbot say to him, "Hello Jepperd, you're too late. I have all your little friends. We'll see you soon." Issue 39, Wild Game, Part 4. Jepperd and Dr. Singh are driving to Fort Smith. Dr. Singh sees Abbot pointing a gun at Gus, execution style. Jepperd arrives and gets out of the truck. He yells at Abbot, "Let him go, Abbot. This is about you and me, and you know it. Well, here I am." Abbot tells Jepperd, "You're wrong, Jepperd. This is about them. This is about finding a cure, even if I have to rip it out of them, and my work isn't done yet. Dr. Singh now gets out of the truck, and he starts yelling at Abbot and says, "There is no cure, Abbot. Where they came from, the lab, it's right inside. Go and see for yourself. There are no answers, at least not the ones you want. Don't you see what these children really are? They are not abominations, they are gods. They are life itself, but they can't thrive until we are gone. We were so wrong, the things we did, the things I did, but it's not too late. We can make it right. We can let them live." Abbot, he doesn't want to hear this shit. He tells Dr. Singh, "Shut up, you useless old bastard. I don't want to hear any more of your bullshit. They're diseased, ridded little atrocities. And this one is the worst of all," he says, pointing to Gus. "Maybe the only cure is to kill them all, starting with him." Jepperd threatens Abbot, but Abbot, he just smiles back and proposes a trade. He says that Jepperd should turn himself over, and in exchange, Abbot will let one of these things go, either Jepperd's beloved Gus, or Jepperd's long-lost son, Buddy. Abbot then reveals that Jepperd's son Buddy is still alive to him. Jepperd, surprised, says no. Abbot asks, "So, who's it gonna be? Who do you love more?" All of a sudden, everyone there hears some weird noises nearby. They're not so sure what to make of it. It is revealed that noise was the other hybrid kids from the incubation tanks. They are standing there on the roof, and they jump off the roof and begin attacking Abbot and his men. As Abbot and his men are being bitten and fighting off these hybrids, Gus starts running and Jepperd starts shooting. Abbot, he retreats inside the facility with Buddy. Jepperd sees Gus and the others are surrounded by those vicious dogs. So Jepperd goes over to them and starts attacking the dogs. The dogs jump on Jepperd and begin biting him. Jepperd is frantically fighting them off and stabbing them with his knife. Dr. Singh even shoots some of the dogs away. Eventually, all the hybrid dogs are put down, and Jepperd, he is bleeding and beaten a bit from that tussle, but still alive. Jepperd removes his jacket, and he says to the others he's going inside for his son, Buddy. Everyone warns Jepperd he is in no shape to go anywhere, but Jepperd says, "That's my son, and I left him once. I can't leave him again." Gus, he won't let Jepperd go alone. He wants to go and help him. But Jepperd makes Gus promise him to stay here, and that if he doesn't come out, to drive as far away as he can to a safe place. Gus is still refusing, so Jepperd continues, "Gus, please, I have to do this, but I also have to know that if I fail, you're gonna be okay. You have to promise me on your heart that you'll go." And Gus, crying, says, I promise." And Jepperd replies, "Good boy. Now go. Get as far away from here as you can." Jepperd runs inside the facility. He starts walking around. He climbs down that ladder to the underground ice tombs. There he sees Abbot investigating those tombs. Jepperd sees Buddy, and he motions for Buddy to stay quiet. Jepperd, he's gonna try to sneak up on Abbot, but Jepperd, he loses his footing as he was climbing down the ladder, and he falls off the ladder, and when he lands, he breaks his leg. Abbot runs over to Jepperd and is yelling at him, "No more games! Tell me, what is this place? What is this fucking place?" Jepperd is just replying, "F you," and Abbot continues yelling, "What is this place? What did Singh find here? Where did this boy come from? The plague, tell me." Abbot, he steps on Jepperd's already broken leg, and Jepperd screams in pain, and Abbot asks if Jepperd has had enough. Jepperd manages to make one last lunge, and he grabs Abbot's neck and begins choking him. Abbot says to this, "Still got some fight in you, eh? Good." Abbot then stabs Jepperd in his back with a knife. Jepperd tells his son Buddy to run. Abbot to this replies, "Run? Do you really think the little idiot understands you? You're just like them, a dumb animal. This is the end, Jepperd. It's about time someone put you down. Look at you. Why won't you just die, goddammit? What is it, Jepperd? Why do you just keep coming like some goddamn cockroach, eh? Why won't you just die? Why won't you just give up? And Jepperd to this says, because I love them. Abbot, thinking about Jepperd's answer, pauses and then replies, pathetic. All of a sudden, Abbot gets stabbed in the neck from behind by Gus. Gus snuck down there, snuck up behind Abbot, and stabbed him, killing him. Gus then runs over to Jepperd and says, hold on, Mr. Jepperd, I'll go get Dr. Singh. And Jepperd, knowing he's not going to live much longer, says, no, stay, sweet tooth, just stay. Gus is telling Jepperd, it's going to be okay, I promise. Jepperd tells Gus, listen, kid, promise me you'll take care of my boy. Gus says, I will, I promise. And Jepperd says, you're a good boy, Gus, a good boy. And then Jepperd closes his eyes and passes away. Gus is holding Jepperd's dead body and is crying there along with Buddy. Issue 40, Home Sweet Home. This is the final issue of Sweet Tooth. In an undetermined amount of time in the future, we see a little boy who looks a lot like Gus with antlers, and the little boy is running. He is crying and running through the woods. Some hunters, bad men, are chasing after him. The little deer boy is helped up by another deer boy that has a little pig snout. The deer boy that looks like Gus referred to the other boy as Tommy. So Tommy is the name of the child in the blue sweater. They continue running. The hunters are after them. One hunter says to the other, shit man, I don't like this. We're too close to the zoo for this. The hunters see the two children up above on a ridge. The hunters climb up there. They begin closing in on the kids. The kids are hiding behind a tree. The two hunters grab the kids. The hybrid kids are yelling to be let go. The hunter yells back, shut up, you disgusting little shit. The one hunter, all of a sudden, gets an arrow right through his head, killing him. The other hunter replies, oh God. And a voice replies, God? God stopped listening to your kind a long time ago. The hybrid kids reply, Dad? Alright, for those of you who haven't figured this out yet, this is an older adult version of Gus. We have had a major time jump since last issue. It is now many years in the future. The hunter tells Gus, step back, man. I'll kill the kid, I swear. And Gus replies, don't be scared, Richard. This man won't hurt you. So the hybrid kids are Gus's children. Gus's two boys are Tommy in the blue sweater. He is named after Tommy Jepperd. And the other child, Richard, he is named after Gus's human father, Richard. The hunter tells Gus, back the F off, I'll do it, I'll kill the kid right now. And Gus replies coolly, no you won't. The hunter all of a sudden gets an axe to his head and dies. Someone comes over to pick up the axe from the hunter's dead body, and that someone says, don't worry, Richie, I am saved you. It is revealed to be an older Bobby. Little Richard hugs Bobby and says, Uncle Bobby? Gus then talking to his children says, I thought I told you boys not to leave the camp. Tommy apologizes. He says that he just wanted to look around. So they all start leaving to head back to their home. Bobby asks Gus, what am we do with them, Gus? And Gus coldly says, leave them as a warning. Later on that night, they stop to make camp and they cook some food over a fire. They are cooking some rabbit. Before they eat the rabbit, Gus has everyone stop and he says a prayer. Gus explains we need to give our offering. The gods have given us this rabbit, this animal that is one of us, to sustain us, and for that, We are grateful and we must never forget. The gods once lived in harmony with man, but man forgot their faces and turned to sin and death. And as their world crumbled around them, they tried to touch the gods again, to recreate them with science, but this was forbidden. And the gods sent a pestilence, their breath on the wind, and man's time was done. They had their chance to live in harmony with the land, and they failed. Then we were born, the hybrid. We are one with the land, one with the animals that walk it. But we also carry mankind's legacy in our blood and bones, so that we never forget that we are no better than they. We too can fall. We too can fail. We must never forget the face of the gods as man did. For their faces are our faces, and for that we leave this hide to feed the wolves, an offering back to the land that sustains us. Amen. Bobby jumps in, now we eat, and they all begin eating. The kids over dinner beg Gus to tell them a story. Little Richard says, "Yeah, come on, tell us about the big man again." And little Tommy and Richard chime in unison, "Big man, big man, big man." So Gus, he thinks back to Jepperd dying, and he gets sad. And he tells the kids, "No, not that story, not tonight. How about a different one instead?" So Gus, he continues, "How about the story of how we found our home? It was the early days of the hybrid, just after the big man gave his life for us. After we discovered the birthplace of the hybrid, and we had fought what we'd hoped would be the last fight against man, we set out to find a new home, a safe place where we could finally stop running. In those early days, we actually still used some of the last machines of man. We rode in their trucks, away from Alaska, away from the cold. And as we know it, it wasn't long until the machines of man stopped working, ran out of their fuel, the same fuel that was choking the world, and we stopped using them altogether. And we took to the land, and it embraced us. And we walked and walked, finding our way, living off the land. We were still terrified back then. We'd seen so much pain, so much death. But it seemed that the big man's sacrifice had changed something, because as we made our way, we saw no more bad men. No one chased us, no one hunted us. For the first time, we felt free. Gus tells the kids that he thinks that's enough for tonight, and they should all go to bed. Now, before everyone retires for the night, Gus and Bobby talk a bit. Gus says to Bobby, those two today were part of a larger group. They had guns, supplies. Bobby says he'll take first watch for the night. Before they separate for bed, Bobby asks if Gus ever told the children about Becky, and Gus replies, "No, they don't need to know that there was someone else before their mother." Now we see, despite all the hinting of a romantic relationship between Gus and Wendy the entire series, Gus, he did end up having a romantic relationship with Becky. And Gus tells Bobby, no point in them knowing, I guess. And Bobby replies, "But it a damn shame no one remembers her. She was so nice." Gus says, yeah, she was, but their mother was the one. So Becky, we see she eventually got sick and died, and Gus ended up with Wendy after that. The next morning, Gus, Bobby, and little Tommy and Richard continued their walk back home. Now we see a flashback to when they all left Alaska and they were walking. It was a safe walk, but a long one. They all walked back to the Nebraska State Wilderness Sanctuary, to the cabin that Gus grew up in. That is where they decided to make their home. We see now, in the present day, Gus, Bobby, Tommy, and Richard arrive at that very same Nebraska State Wilderness Sanctuary. And Gus comments to them, back then it was just an old cabin, and even that had been burnt down by the bad men. It was hard to imagine what it would become. Now we see what has become of Gus's old home in the woods. It has now become a bustling home for many hybrids, young and old. They have built a life for themselves in the forest, filled with gardening and wood cabins and tree houses, little children. It is beautiful. Little Richard and Tommy run over to their mom, Wendy, and they hug her. When the kids run off, Wendy and Gus talk. Gus says how they ran into some humans recently who attacked them, and how it's the last generation of humans and they've grown scared and desperate now. And Gus is worried they may try something, break the truce they have. Wendy asks, will we be ready if they do? And Gus answers, of course, we knew this day would come. We see all these many years later, Dr. Singh is still alive, and he is living with all the animal hybrids now. He has gray hair and he is an old man. Dr. Singh, in the early days after they arrived in the deep woods in Nebraska, he was a lost soul. He had spent so much time and effort trying to solve the unsolvable riddle of the hybrid plague, and he was lost without it, without having to worry about it. But eventually, Dr. Singh found his calling. He was a man of medicine, and the hybrids needed help, and his knowledge would be necessary to pass down if the hybrid were to survive. So, he became a teacher. The man who was most afraid to die from the plague ended up living the longest and happiest life of them all, living to be an old man at peace among the hybrids. Even though the hybrids gained so much, they were terrified they could lose it all. We see a meeting has been called. Gus is with Bobby and they were talking to other high-ranking hybrids, and they are discussing what they should do about the humans who have been attacking them recently. Gus, he preaches patience and peace. He says, we need to stay patient. It is only a matter of time until the last of them die off. We knew this would happen. We knew they'd become more and more desperate as they grew older and their ranks thinned. We see another hybrid animal arguing with Gus says, I don't understand how you can keep preaching that we do nothing, Gus, when just this morning your own children were attacked not 2 days from here. And Gus to this says, because, Albert, they are more scared of us than we are of them. We are strong, young, organized. The humans are weak and scattered and dying. They'd be fools to come here. Another hybrid jumps in and argues, we're the fools if we just sit by and listen to this any longer. We see it was an adult Buddy that said this, and he has formed a war party. He argues for war because of Buddy's upbringing, his thoughts were often fueled with fear and hatred of humans. Buddy says, the humans are coming, and if we let them, they'll burn this place to the ground and slaughter our children where they sleep. We need to attack and wipe them out before they have the chance to do it to us. Buddy, he speaks of a large party of men on their way here, and he says that we need to prepare. Talking to Gus, he says, are you a coward or just a fool, Gus? Man has shown time and time again that they seek nothing more than to wipe us out. Most of us grew up in captivity. We saw the evil they are really capable of. We didn't all have the luxury of living in hiding and being protected like you were. And Gus to this says, I saw my share of horrors too, Buddy. None of us grew up unscathed. Buddy to this says, this is pointless. All you do is talk. He announces that he and his war party are going to hunt these humans down before they get close to here, and he welcomes anyone who wants to join him. We see later on, Buddy's war party meets the approaching humans, and there is in fact a war and fighting. Some humans are killed, but also some hybrids, and one of the humans has Buddy cornered, and that human is going to kill Buddy. But then, that human gets an arrow to his head. Despite Gus's call for peace, he decided to join the fight and aid Buddy and the other hybrids in their fighting. Gus, he rode in on a horse and fired the arrow that saved Buddy's life. Gus then helped Buddy up, and he told him, you were right, they'll never stop attacking us, unless we offer them another choice. Gus then told the remaining humans that were fighting them, you are beaten, you are hungry and sick and dying, but it doesn't have to be like this, not anymore. Gus, he offered the humans compassion. He offered them to come live with them as refugees. And some of the humans came, and the hybrids let go of their fear and hatred of the humans and helped mankind in their final passage out of this world. One night there was some sort of celebration or festival that was going on in their home in the woods, and all the various hybrid animals were dancing and were happy. And Gus's wife Wendy asked him, "What's wrong?" And Gus replied, "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I think for the first time in my entire life, there is no battle on the horizon, nowhere to run and nothing to run from. I am a bit lost. What do we do now?" And Wendy to this says, Now we live." Wendy tells Gus that Jepperd would be proud of him. He'd be proud of all of us. And Gus answers, I know. Gus watches his two boys from a distance, playing with their Uncle Bobby. And Gus realized that he was happy. Eventually, years later, Gus's two boys, Richard and Tommy, would grow up, and they went off to see the world. They spent years on the road, exploring the cities of man, scavenging for treasure and seeing the old ways firsthand. And unlike Gus, when they traveled out into the world, they were free. Then they eventually returned as adults and brought with them stories as well as survivors from hybrid communities across the continent. Now Gus, now older, realized that his people no longer needed to rely on him. The hybrid had grown beyond him and would endure without him. He could finally rest. Eventually, Gus would see his kids get married, and they would have kids of their own, and Gus became a grandparent. We see, many years later, Gus is an old hybrid now. He has his grandchildren on his knee, and they are begging Gus to tell them a story, and he asks, "Which one do you want to hear?" And the grandchildren answer, the big man, tell us about the big man." And the other child continues, "Grandpa, how come we just call him Big Man? Didn't he have a real name?" And old Gus replies to this, "Yes, he did. Jepperd. His name was Jepperd. And he was a good man. He protected me. He protected all of us. And that's why we have this harvest celebration every year to remember him. And everything he did so that we could be free." Gus's adult child, Tommy, comes into the cabin and says, "All right, you two, it's already late and your grandpa is tired. Besides, we should get going if you want to see the festival before bed." Before the kids leave, Gus says, "Hold on, I got something here for you. One for each of you." And he pulls out 2 chocolate bars, the very same chocolate bars that Jepperd gave him at the beginning of the series. And Tommy says to his dad, "Sigh, you spoil them, Dad." And Gus replies, "That's my job, son." Gus's children and grandchildren and his wife go to the festival and they ask Gus if he's coming, and he says, "Soon, just gonna sit here for a minute." Gus sits there and watches his wife and children and grandchildren walk away, and he sits there and he smiles. Eventually, Jepperd in a white shirt walks into the cabin that Gus is in, and he shakes Gus's hand, and they both smile at each other, and eventually, they both walk off into the distance together, as Gus has just peacefully died of old age, and he has joined Jepperd in the afterlife. And that is how the series ends. Alright, so that was the finale of Sweet Tooth, and I thought it ended in a very satisfactory way. We got answers of what is behind the plague, and of course, it's scientists doing crazy science stuff on these Inuit gods, and that sort of angered the gods and caused this whole plague. I like that we had that big epic confrontation with Abbot and Gus and Jepperd and Jimmy and everybody in a big fight. You gotta end with a big fight, and I thought that all went down really well. And then we have Abbot and Jepperd being confronted one-on-one, squaring off, and I liked some of that conversation going down and how Gus sort of got the final kill on Abbot, and Jepperd, he gave his life so Gus and the others could go on, and I thought all that was really good. Then, of course, we have the final issue time jump. the time jump issue. And at this point, it's becoming a little bit of a cliche. I've actually seen this go down in a lot of my favorite comic series. Invincible, Walking Dead, Why the Last Man, all end with a time jump issue. But what can I say? It's effective and it works, and I really loved that final issue. I really felt it was a good way to just wrap everything up and see where everyone is in the future. So I like that we got to see Gus's children, and he named them one after Tommy Jepperd and the other one after his human father, Richard. So I thought that was really touching to see that. I thought it was really interesting seeing the world in the future and how at the Nebraska State Wilderness Sanctuary, Gus's old home has all of a sudden become this utopia for the animals, and they're all living together, all the hybrids in these makeshift houses and stuff. I thought that was really cool to see. I liked seeing the end of mankind play out. So it ends with mankind sort of losing and the hybrids inheriting the earth. And I felt all that was pretty interesting. I like that Gus was kind of this leader, took on this leadership role. That was good. I like seeing an adult Bobby and some of the other hybrid animals as adults now. I thought that was really cool. I liked how Jepperd was remembered as this person of historical importance, and they celebrated him in a festival and lovingly referred to him as the big man. And I thought that was all really great stuff. I love to see it. And then finally, when everything is at peace, Gus, he can finally just relax and live his life and pass on the torch to the next generation, his children. And I thought that was a really good message to end with. And then we see Gus growing older and becoming an old man. We see his children getting married. And finally, at the end of the story, Gus passes away and dies and joins Jepperd in heaven. And that's just really touching. And of course, made me tear up a bit. And yeah, I thought this was just a really beautiful ending. And I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Really, really good stuff. Thank you all for watching. I will be continuing on with American Vampire next. And if you want more Sweet Tooth action, you can check out the Netflix TV series when that eventually comes out. And we can all see how Netflix most likely butchers the source material. There's also the DC miniseries, Sweet Tooth The Return, written by Jeff Lemire. That's coming out right now. 2 issues of the 6 are out. I've read the first 2 issues. I gotta say, it's going in a completely different direction. It's set 300 years in the future, and I don't really know if I like it. I'm very mixed on it right now. But maybe when the series ends, Jeff Lemire will really do something interesting with it. But right now, I'm mixed on it. But you should check it out if you're interested. That's all I gotta say. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the future.